listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, March 15th, year of our Lord 2018, and you are listening to a Gen Pop Media production. We are broadcasting live from the palatial CRB radio facilities in picturesque downtown Redford. I want to get rid of a...
You've already lied twice.
I've already lied twice. Well, what can I do? But hey, here's one thing I'm serious about. If you or your loved one need a little extra care, a parent or anyone who needs a helping hand, call the ladies at Elder Care. They'll bring peace back to your life. You can visit Elder Care at eldercarecares.com or contact them directly at 734-671-6518. They're very nice people, and they will be happy to take care of you. Got a couple shout-outs before we get into the show. We want to shout out to AE911truth.org, our good friend Claudio Marti and his friend Trina Maria. They have IamTheFaceOfTruth.com, and they have got a new project that they are pushing out to the public called OneVoiceNow.org. Very, very cool stuff. If you want to get involved, if you want to be enlightened and get a grab. Join forces with other people with similar mindsets. Go there. That's OneVoiceNow.org. And I'm going to plug my pet project, my favorite .org on the internet. Little old .org. It's the DCDFoundation.org, spelled DCD.
Spelled like it sounds.
Yeah, it's spelled just like it sounds. There's nothing French about the spelling of the DCD Foundation. Good people, good cause. Go there, visit, find out how to get involved. Send us money. I need you guys to remember it's not down the conventional hole, it's down the rabbit hole. As always, don't trust any one person so that you carry someone else's mistake with you. Please, especially ours. Do your own research. Please don't take anything we say as gospel unless, of course, we're quoting the gospel. Because there are no more secrets, man. Just ignorance.
Nice intro. And you rocked the board at the same time.
Well, we have no idea until Al tells us I did it right. So
if we have a button for a crowd applause, that's what we'd hit.
I don't know. I got a boing. I got a boing.
Yeah, that sounds.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
Oh, here we go. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
That's, of course, our live studio audience.
Yeah, our live studio audience.
Redford.
Yep.
I'm thinking about moving this thing to Detroit. What do you guys think?
Do you think you can fit it in your trunk?
Yeah, because it's an idea, so it fits anywhere right now.
You know my opinion on that.
What is your opinion on that?
Definitely think that'd be good.
Okay. Tony, what's your opinion?
I don't like Detroit.
All right, Tony's in. What about you, Howard?
I am with Tony.
He's not the best colored man in the business for nothing.
Totally with Tony.
Just a bit outside.
So wait, what do you think? Wait, what did you say? You do like it, or you don't? Oh,
no,
you don't like Detroit.
I don't like I went down for the Autorama Friday. So I arrived down there, and I've only got a short amount of time because I got to get back to home because my daughter's going to meet me. We're going to have dinner. Got reservations and everything. She's home from school. Go down to Detroit, sit in traffic for 45 minutes next to Cobo, trying to get in. No parking under Cobo. No parking on the roof.
That's
no
just
parking
because
anywhere.
Detroit has shitty event meeting place
And
space.
they got cop cars blocking off all the. You're like, why are they blocking these streets off?
They won't be blocking them off if we have our show down there. I'll tell you that. It's a madhouse down
eventually.
here. Yeah, that's been on my mind a lot. We'll talk more about that off air. What are we talking about today? We've got a question from the audience.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Mr. J.
Oh, you want to start? You want to start with my
not?
question?
We are going to talk a little bit later, if we get into it, about human institutions and how they metaphorically might mirror what a relationship with God might look like, what he might be seeking, which I have a feeling is a long way away from where this question is going to be.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's just start with the question. Let's just see where this takes us.
Start with the
today.
question. So I've this week I've been in my personal time, whether I've been driving around, whether I'm at home, just playing a video game or whatever. I'm definitely been getting into conspiracy theories, and I just have one really big question. So it seems like everything we talked about from like last week, how we were talking about how they had the guillotines already, and then me and Howard were talking today, and what were we talking about? I forget what we were talking about, but it just seems like everything's kind of in place. As we are where we are today, it just seems like everything's in place for them to just come. Oh, what we were talking about was how the gay rights thing was a way for them to kind of take over the churches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, take out the churches.
Yeah, to take out the churches. Like,
and it isn't a gay. It was the gay marriage.
Oh,
the
yeah,
Supreme Court ruling on the gay
marriage. Yeah. So it just seems like everything is already in place for them to do whatever it is they're going to do. A lot of people have different theories, but it seems like they just haven't hit that button yet. And I can't help but wonder what is stopping them from doing that.
They hit the button. It's a slow ramp. A lot of things have to happen to control everybody's thoughts and get them used to things so that there aren't mass riots when it happens, so that there's only a few of us going, what's going on? You know, there's only a few armed people left, because everybody else is just kind of like, oh, what's next on The Bachelor?
Right.
Yeah, you just hit it. It's the First Amendment and the Second Amendment.
Yeah, taking them out.
Which was on the agenda. Obviously, it was on the agenda. If you paid attention before the election, Chelsea Clinton, Hillary Clinton, they were all talking about ways to go after the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
New ways, and it all comes down to Supreme Court justices, etc. And you see they're going after the First Amendment real hard right now. They're trying after the Second Amendment with these, I call them false flags events. You don't really want to say that because I'll cut you out, but I think that's what's really the holdup right now. Because like as Howard said, if something happens and you have, just look at Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, these states, the hunters alone are the largest standing army in the world.
Yeah.
So,
and for anybody
logistically
who
very
doesn't
tough.
realize that the Detroit area, Wayne County, the Tri-County area, we are not the prototype of what Michigan really is. Michigan is 85-90%, and maybe that's a little high, but 75-80% farmland and militia country. Mm-hmm. The big city areas, with Detroit being a huge city, Grand Rapids being a very large city as well. We've got we get that big city feel, but even Illinois. You've got Chicago and several big cities there, but it's the whole Midwest. It's all farm country, and that's right. where the militia. That's where they're born and bred.
So you asked, look, what's keeping them from?
Yeah, because it just seems like to me like if the leader of the Illuminati said, "Let's do it today," they could very well do that, and it just seems like they're holding out, like they're waiting for something. To me, that's the only thing that I can come up with, just from kind of diving into it and looking around. Like I was looking up FEMA camps, and it just seems like everything's already in place as we stand today. And it just seems like they just haven't hit that final button,
I think a big part of it is there's too many of us still. I think they need to get rid of a lot of people before they feel like they could control it.
People like us are growing exponentially almost. I mean, for everyone that wakes up, they wake up at least one other person, usually at least two on average. If it's not a wife or a friend, someone close to them. And that that keeps doubling and doubling. And, if you start with, let's say Bill Cooper was the first person that woke up. and it takes a year to wake someone up. So let's say by 1990, now this is very hypothetical. This is not what happened, but just to understand how quickly the world is waking up. If someone has a calculator here, let's say 1992 is when he woke up the first person. And by 1993, then there were 2 people awake. By 1994, there were 4 people awake. Okay, you understand? You keep doubling it.
Right.
You keep doing that for 30 years, and if you do the numbers, just do, I guess that would be what? 1, or that would be 2 to the 30th power. I don't know how you do that on a calculator. And so 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Do that 30 times. I mean, we're now into the...
Let's do it. That's good radio. We can do that. It's good radio.
Yeah.
2 times 2.
All right, so my answer actually creeps up into the Bible because at the end of the day, God is in charge of everything, or he allows everything to happen. And I agree with your assessment. Like, I've often characterized it as we have 360 guns pointed at our head. There is no way out of this on a physical level. And the only thing, it seems that, let's just call them the Illuminati, because this is bigger than just the Illuminati, but it seems the only thing they are still trying to get squared away are just, it's basically how neat this process is going to be for them. Because they, right now, with the weapons they have, they could, even if guns were not removed out of the hands of Americans, they could take over this country, which many people would argue they already have, just not overtly. They're not on TV saying there are.
How would they take over the country in your mind?
How?
Yeah. In what manner would they take over the country?
All of them. So the big ones, I mean, the 2 big ones they've got are financial and military. So under Obama, 350 commanding generals were removed out of our military, replaced with basically I'm assuming these were mostly Illuminati guys. I mean, our military has really been revamped. And then, so who knows where true allegiances are? And if you really talk to people inside the military, there are some fully aware of what's going on, and they've already even publicly stated, I will never shoot on an American citizen. They're being trained to do this.
Which is against the law, so they'd have to break the law to start with. They'd have to have
martial law sort of eradicates many laws, and who knows the law? I mean, who's going to defend themselves by it? No one knows the law, and no one even knows what the First Amendment is, or the Second, or the Third. I mean, they've already dumbed us down. I mean, that battle was won back in the early 1900s, and we're 3-4 generations into people that do not know how to think. They just know what they're told, and people like us that used to be the norm 100 years ago, we're now an aberration because this society is completely brainwashed. But
add to that, though, the reason I brought that up is because one of the ways around it, because I still think it would be a problem. There's enough people that know the law to know that the military is not supposed to fight against American citizens, right? Of course, you got the things like you're talking about, where they call in the military if the governor or whoever calls in the military for martial law, they can do these kind of things. But they would still be it wouldn't be a real easy thing for them to do. The main thing that you'll find out there as conspiracy theorists go, they're talking about the UN troops coming in and doing that. And if you remember when Obama talked about in his campaign, we have to have a homeland security force that is as big, as powerful, as well funded as our military. You guys remember that?
No, but seeing as the same people that financed him financed Hitler, and he had many internal militaries, it doesn't surprise me.
No, absolutely not. And that's one of the things that just kind of went over everybody's head. But, when you hear something like this, you're thinking like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing here, But people don't see it that way. They think, oh, that's, even saying Illuminati right now, people just tune that out. Right.
If you're brainwashed, yeah.
Yeah.
If you dismiss it without thinking about it, it's a sign that you're brainwashed. So Let me finish my answer, though, because this goes beyond, this leaks into the spiritual war we're in and even basically the final battle. Right now, God's hand of protection is over the world, and he's going to remove it. He already said, I am going to remove the protector. And I think the day that happens, and no one knows the day because it's tied to the rapture. And what was the big thing about the rapture is even Jesus Christ
didn't know
the day. So this little question mark that exists, I think it's God's way of keeping Satan from completely being... Satan needs to be on the ready. Because the minute that rapture happens, he's going to come out with a cover story. And I assume it's going to have something to do with whatever's in our skies have just zapped out a bunch of bad people, is what the story will be.
Can I ask you a personal question about the rapture? This is something that I've thought about even when I was a kid. This is a question. Like, if God came to me and was like, the rapture's getting ready to happen, you could go to heaven or you could stay. Would you prefer to go or would you stay and help people?
Well, I'd have to ask God a question, which is, does my answer impact my standing in heaven?
Right.
If you want a fighter, I will stay. But don't get me wrong, I want to go to the party as soon as possible.
Right.
It's one thing about Christianity that is really, this is really what has changed my life, is losing the fear of death. Now, that's not to say that, like I made a joke before, if I'm tied up to a big pile of wood and they're about to light me on fire, I will be crapping my pants, okay? But I will not be looking at that moment as this is the end of my existence. I will actually be looking at the moment as this is a graduation to a much better existence. So this is sort of like being, right now, I feel like I'm in 11th grade, and I know college is in the future, and everyone has such a great time in college. I can't wait to get there, but I'm just going to enjoy my time here for now. Do what I can. Do my studies, get prepared so I can have a good time in college. That's really the metaphor here. So I think this very secret and unknown date, the minute that happens, Satan's got to go. I think he's had a plan ready. Frankly, I think... if God's protection would have been removed during the Cuban Missile Crisis, for instance, I think that Satan would have hit the button. He would have had his people, who are either part of his family through these bloodlines that he has kept whole since the days of Babylon, or through the dumb patsy recruits he gets through secret societies, these guys that make blind oaths to something they don't even know. For what? For money. For money and power, which ties into what does God hate? Pride and the love of money. That is the root of all evil. And you get these guys that are willing to do things that are bad for many to advance themselves. That is, for me, one of the definitions of evil. And there are just enough of them in place now that they're going to screw up whatever systems are supposed to happen. And they were in place back then, too. So back then they were called the establishment, the secret government. And Kennedy, even a president, stumbled onto who they were. He discovered that, wow, these guys are real and they are actually organized and they're ancient. And
if I remember correctly, didn't he have a speech about secret societies like a couple weeks before he died or something like that?
Wasn't a couple weeks before he died, but he did do a speech. It was at a college commencement. No. It was in front of the New York or the Washington Press Club. It was to the newspaper institution at the time. We were a newspaper-driven society back then. This would have been in 60. I'm guessing 62, maybe early 63. He died in late 63. But he gave that famous speech about how terrible secrets are.
And
secret oaths.
Open society.
Of course he is talking about the Illuminati. They weren't known as the Illuminati necessarily back then, at least not
to
by
the general public.
Thank you. They were known as the establishment. They've had many names all throughout history. More recent names are the New World Order, the Elite, the 1%, the Illuminati. But they've been around. Jesus talked about them. The synagogue of Satan, these people pretending to be Jews that are actually Satan worshippers.
That, by the way, that was at the Waldorf Astoria in April of 61.
61, okay. Thank you. Yeah, he was basically saying that our real enemy is this. Now, everyone takes it and thinks he's talking about, not everyone, people that are trying to shut down conspiracy discussion will say, well, he was just talking about the Russians. But no, he was not at all talking about the Russians, because he was talking about our real enemy is an enemy that uses covert actions. They don't use big militaries. They use assassins at night. I mean, is this the Russians?
I was talking about the CIA as well. Dulles and...
He's talking about this amoeba-like network that has no name, which was Adam Weishaupt's own mandate. He goes, we will never operate under our own name. We will operate with this cohesive end goal in mind, but no one will ever be able to link, you'll just be the head of the EPA. You'll be the Secretary of Education. You will be XYZ, ABC. They have a loyalty to something higher than the United States. They have an oath that is above the oath they took for their office, and that is what they're loyal to. And it's not that they're treasonous to the Russians or they're treasonous to Americans. They're loyal to the father of lies. They're loyal to the devil himself, literally, at the end of the day. Younger degreed guys aren't aware of it yet. Later degreed guys are. Some of them figure it out and defect. We know how their systems, their organization operates. There's no secrets there. Again, there's just ignorance if you don't look into it. But you'll never hear the people on the news tell you about it. Why? Because they're part of the same system. They work for the same organization that has a different agenda. Mm-hmm. Not everyone on the television, but enough so that they dominate the institution. And a ridiculous lie like 9/11 can be pulled off right in front of our faces. And as long as, some pretty boys like Anderson Cooper, it's really these know-nothing, just makeup models who read, who really aren't journalists whatsoever. They're just propagandists. As long as we keep believing them implicitly, we're listening to the mouth of the devil. And if that is where you get your information, there's no secrets about what's going to happen to you. You're just going to get caught off guard with what's coming. But what's coming, though, isn't just some military takeover of the U.S. and other nations. And I do believe there's absolute, that absolutely will happen, as the lion and all of her lionesses, the lion being Britain, which is Tarshish, and all of the lion's offsprings, which are the South Africas, the United States, the
Australia.
Yeah, thank you. All of the former UK, United Kingdom, even factions of India. So, it's kind of scary at first to realize, wow, we are literally staring down the barrel of a gun until, and this is the only way to escape this prison, until you realize that your physical death is not the end of life. It's actually the beginning of life. And once you just really know it, like once you know it in your heart, it's nothing you can ever prove in a court of law. I can't prove I love my son in a court of law either. I just know I do. There's our defense attorneys out there that could poke enough holes. Oh, you've had a cigarette around your son? How can you love him? You kept him home from school this day? How could you love him? You could create enough doubt in a court of law, and that's the highest measuring stick we have on earth. So this is the kind of I know that can never be proven. But when you get to the point where you know God is real, and you realize that for going back almost 4,000 years, he began predicting the future. And he's never, been wrong. And of the 2,000 predictions in the Bible, we've got 1,500 that they've essentially been authenticated. I mean, they have occurred. There's no mistakes. The only thing we have are some undiscovered finds, which maybe are being discovered as we speak. But the Smithsonian and our museum system, they actually work to keep, they're part of this amoeba-like cabal. They keep the truth out. Because we can't have people finding out that there were giants on the earth at one point, because that throws evolution on its ear. And without evolution, the only alternative you've got, there's only two ways humanity gets here. We really evolved from nothing, or we were put here. Now, under the category of we were put here, there's going to be a debate amongst whether God put us here or aliens put us here. But if you believe aliens put us here, you got the same exact problem. Well, who put the aliens where they are? Did they evolve, or were they created by somebody? Now, of course, those aliens are going to be a demonic deception. They are going to say that they seeded us and they're our gods, quote unquote. Where was I going with this? Evolution.
That kind of leads into I pretty much had three questions I want to ask. And the second one kind of, I've noticed this thing lately with, just yesterday I was getting, and I always do it, but I was getting arguments on Facebook, you know what I mean? And
boy.
it's weird, like I had some friends, and they all seem to have the same background. We're like super into heavy metal music. We're kind of like the outcast of high school, you know what I mean? I was still friends with them. I was friends with everyone in high school. And now they all seem to like, it seems like at some point in everyone's life they look for something, whether it's God, but it seems like all these kids have found science, and I swear it's like it's their religion. You know what I mean? Like, instead of the 10 Commandments, they have the scientific method.
Well, because people on television get on, and these people look credible, and they're rich, and they're pretty, and they're famous. So we dumb humans give them more. And now if that person is a willing liar or an ignorant liar, there's two types. There's the one that does it willfully, that is effing evil. Most of them are just ignorant. They're just doing their job, and they don't see the bigger picture. They don't see how they're impacting or helping fulfill the plans of the devil.
But have you noticed that lately? Like this big, it's almost like science is a religion now.
It is.
I don't know, and like Neil deGrasse Tyson would be like the Pope. You know, it's just
we got Bill Nye, Michio Kaku, Stephen Hawking's now gone. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the right. You'll see the same few scientifically minded guys. They really set the common knowledge for the United States. It's 3 or 4 guys. Richard Dawkins is one of them. And they're frankly just, I think at that level, I don't know if Richard Dawkins, for instance, really believes in evolution, or whether he's being paid to do this.
right.
No, I think all these people are being paid. They're all part of it.
Some of them are doing it out of love for their god, who is Lucifer. And the hardcore Luciferians, they believe that Jesus was the evil one who kept us from knowledge, kept us from being God, and Satan came here to solve that problem for us. He's doing this because of his love of humanity. And there are many people at the highest levels of Luciferianism that they believe that's how they were raised. And when they look around, because these are the wealthiest families on the planet, and they look around at their lives compared to the lives of the rest of the world, it's easy to convince yourself that, well, we must be praising the right God here, because look how he takes care of us. I mean, we're living in absolute luck. We rule the planet. Of course, this is the real God.
Right.
But they don't realize that Satan only has the deed temporarily. When Adam lost it, it was given to Satan. And
What do you mean by that?
the deed to earth,
Oh, to Earth. Okay.
this is the scroll. This is the 7-sealed scroll that John the Revelator has this vision about. And he starts to cry because he's freaked out that no one in heaven is worthy to open the scroll.
Open the seal, except for Jesus, right?
But there was one person, and it was Jesus. Now, I don't know how the Spirit of God divides himself and is in Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And I do not understand that completely. I do know myself as a human. I have different roles to play in this world. Sometimes I'm a father. Sometimes I'm a disciplinarian. Sometimes I'm the boss. Sometimes I'm a customer. They all impact how I behave. There's always love in my heart. But there will be times where I'm talking to my son, and he may not feel that. And I think the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God are, in a sense, the different roles. I mean, Jesus, I think, is the loving, friendly. Like, all of you guys that are dads here, you love your kids. But what would you do to someone that harmed your kids? I mean, would you be willing to kill? I would.
Without hesitation.
And I think it's, in fact, one of the institutions we were going to talk about today is the parent-child institution. Because people don't understand, like, when things don't go their way, they think that God is out to screw them over. But that's not it at all. It's the same way that a teenager yells at his parents because he got grounded when he's 15 years old. He doesn't understand what the big deal was about staying out a half hour late or drinking beers with his buddy, whatever it was. And it's very clear in the Bible when that's happening is you are being disciplined. And actually, if everything's coasting smoothly in your life, that's a warning sign, because that implies that God has given you over. Like, this is as close to heaven as you'll ever get, and he's going to let you enjoy this time here. He's not going to put you through tribulation. It's why Jesus spoke in metaphors, so that the people that didn't want to understand would have a defense to say, I never knew the truth because it came through a metaphor. He actually did it as a form of mercy on people that will be judged by God. And of course, it also reveals several layers of meaning when you start to understand those metaphors. But the whole metaphor in almost every story in the book is about a broken marriage and how it gets essentially healed. But when Adam screwed up and Eve screwed up, I believe something happened to their DNA. Something happened on Earth. I mean, things got smaller, trees got smaller, animals got smaller. The oxygen levels decreased. I mean, there was something. And at that point, Adam lost the deed to Earth. This was our domain. It had been taken from Satan in the rebellion, because Satan was here on Earth. He was in the garden of God, adorned in jewels. This is before Adam and Eve. And there were cities in the world that had been destroyed. God references. Now, archaeology finds that now. This would be included in the gap theory. And when Adam screws up, Satan inherits this deed. And the only way to get it back is to essentially, to use legal speak, is for the powers of heaven to go through some loopholes. And this is something people don't understand. And I use a metaphor of a business, because I understand this. I've been the CEO of a few companies. And I might put ads out to the whole world, like on Monster.com or in big newspapers, saying, hey, you can get a job here. And the truth is, yeah, anyone can get a job here, but not everyone can. And I was going somewhere with that one, too. I don't remember exactly where it was.
I'll have to jump through hoops to get the deed back to the earth.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So basically, what Jesus did is a legal way to get us into heaven without God breaking the rules of his own kingdom. Because if he breaks his own rules, what is he? I mean, that's a human thing to do. Right. That's a hypocritical thing to do. I don't think he can. There is no darkness in him. So I think that's why, I mean, look at everything that was created in this world. But God spends 6 chapters on it in Genesis. What's the rest of the book about? how to save this fallen race of people, how to get them to be able to even have a chance to qualify for heaven. And that involved Jesus coming down and essentially being killed. And his bride, who, the body of Christ, when that happened, we are now a divorced woman. Okay? That's why there's big emphasis on divorced women and women being adopted into families through marriage. And it can only happen when the first wife literally has passed away. And this is why I think is you have to be born again. You die the first time. And you have to be born the second time to go to heaven, because if you're still your old self, you're still in that first marriage, and that marriage essentially was destroyed, the output of it. No human, no matter how good you are, will ever qualify for heaven like that. So this is a way to put a little disclaimer on this group of people, which is we humans, and we are essentially being given a pass, like a get-out-of-jail-free card, that could only be issued through a bunch of loophole jumping upstairs. And they pulled it off. And apparently part of the mission was Jesus had to come here, live sinlessly, and then be crucified, as the scriptures predicted. And it happened to a T. And we know it was in the scriptures as much as 1,000 years before he came. So that's no accident. This is before crucifixion happened. So the big story now is Satan's got the deed temporarily. Jesus shows up. Satan's in a position to offer Jesus the world back then because he owned the deed. He's like, I'll give you the deed right now. All you have to do is praise me. I'll give you all the cities you see. Flat earth point right there, if you can see all the cities at once. Yeah, but who knows what goes on in the spiritual world. So it's not that Jesus responded by saying, you don't have authority to give me earth. That's not what Jesus said, it is not the time for me to take it yet. That's not the will of my Father first. And he always responded using Scripture, Jesus did. He didn't use his own words when he was combating the devil, by the way. So the devil failed in that. He failed in that temptation. He tried to get Jesus to break, and Jesus did not break. And that is where I think the victory came. And then the shedding of blood, there's something about it. Maybe it's because our spirit's in the blood, but from the second murder, which was Cain's, I mean, God said, Abel's blood screamed out to me. And the more I look at the Bible, the more literal it is constantly. And it does jibe with science. So the big thing is this deed, this 7-seal deed, is being handed back to Jesus Christ. And in the book of Revelation, we have the 7 seals, and we see what happens as they get broken, because he gets closer and closer to opening up this document, which, if you look into Hebrew history, let's call it a transaction. It was a very common form of doing business for the Israelites, even before they were in Israel. Look into that. So as he's opening up these seals, there's metaphorical or maybe real things going on, but we already know that basically that is the destruction of everything on earth. That is the removal of all of the ones that are aligned with Jesus. This loving God now comes back and is going to burn everybody. I know it doesn't sound Jesus-like, but that is part of his role. That is part of who he is. And he's also a fierce God. He is love, and he is a forgiving God. So am I as a father, but you wouldn't want to meet me when you've crossed my children. Do you understand? Because that has a balance to it. As much love as I have for my children, I can have that much wrath towards you. And he's patient, but he's done everything else he's said. I do believe, like he said, he will come back, and everyone that is left here, the chaff, they're going to get wiped out. And that's when he's now got the deed, and now his kingdom comes down, and he actually rules on earth from an actual throne, like the seat of David in Jerusalem. He will actually rule on earth, both light entities and human beings, for 1,000 years. Satan's let out one more time, about 950 years from now, 900 years into the future. One last time he'll be let out, and it's at that time there's several different types of judgments, but then there's the great white throne. This is the last judgment 1,000 years from now. And that's when all the people that have been suffering in Hades and all the people that have been loving being in paradise, which are these two spiritual holding areas, the spiritual holding areas are going to get wiped out. Hades is going to go bye-bye. Death is going to go bye-bye. And everyone in paradise then goes to heaven, and everyone in Hades, whether they go to hell or just get burned up and extinguished, I'm not exactly sure. But whatever it is, God's not there, and it's not fun. And it seems like a really long time. And that will conclude this 7,000-year the story of this version of human history. I say this version because if you look at archaeology, there have been many humanoid-like creatures that have lived on Earth that weren't human. Because I don't think this is the first time Satan and God and this process has happened. There's nothing new under the sun. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a constant recruiting tool. So to answer the question from long ago, what's keeping them from doing it? The Illuminati from starting the end of the world? It's not their own desires, because they would have ended the world 30 years ago if they could have. It is the power of the protection of God. And he's got his protector on earth. And when the number of the Gentiles is fulfilled, there's a specific number of saved people God is looking for. A specific number. And every time someone gets saved, we get a little bit closer. I personally believe that number is equal to a third of the angels that fell. He is going to repopulate heaven to replace the third that fell. But he's not just going to grandfather everyone into heaven. This time, he's bringing people up there that have proven to him that they want to be there. They know what they're getting into. They're choosing God. They've given up their physical lives for him. They know their future's in heaven. They're just pilgrims passing through earth. And we're at the point now where, some people might argue that 5 or 6 of the 7 seals have now been opened.
What are the last two? Last one's death, is that?
Well, death, I don't know. I do know that death and Hades, it's almost like death is a spirit, very much like the death we see on television, the guy in the black. Mm-hmm. And it's like he had nowhere to be until Adam and Eve ate that fruit, and something happened to him. And I wouldn't be surprised, we've now discovered, and these are recent discoveries in the last few years, we're only using about 12 to 14% of our DNA. I wouldn't be surprised if that other 86% was what got shut off when Adam and Eve fell. And it's a genetic condition, so you're born with it. Think of it more like, think of any genetic disease. No matter what work you do or what you do, there's no way to kill that disease. There's just you've got it. You've got it, and heaven is like a clean room that it's not even allowed to have even 1 ounce of bacteria, 1 ounce of sin in it. And I don't think it's because God is militant. I think it's because he actually cares about us. Because the truth is, if sin is darkness, darkness is shadow, you can't have a shadow coexist with something that is pure light. There are no shadows. It's not the light being mean to the shadow. It's just a physical reality of light particle. There can be. It can't be around him. It'll burn itself up, which would explain how so many people just touching the wrong thing or looking at the wrong thing throughout history were literally fried. I mean, why was Moses' face glowing when he
Horned.
walked out of these meetings with God? And God already went through a bunch of rigmarole just to be able to get him to be in his presence. I mean, there was clouds and incense and tents and special,
To be in his presence, right?
yeah.
No one could be in his presence. It was interesting because I just told that story yesterday about, being horned. The whole thing was like when you look at Michelangelo's statue,
Mm-hmm.
okay? He's got horns on his head.
Who?
Moses.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, Michelangelo's statue has horns on his head, in which I was like, wow, that's weird. Why would he have horns? Well, it was because he was in the presence of God, and he was horned, which was misconstrued as having horns, but it actually meant he was all red-faced, like you're saying, like he was in presence of a great light, like you get a big sunburn. So that's what that whole thing was about.
Do you know why, or does anyone know why Michael the archangel and Satan fought over the bones of Moses?
Mm-mm.
No clue.
Do you? No.
By the way, the seventh seal,
Yeah,
is the seven trumpets.
I think around 2.
Does someone have the seals ready to go?
Yeah.
What are the 7 seals?
First seal is the white horse.
That is the Jesus counterfeit.
Yeah, had a
So
bow,
that'll be
given
the
a crown,
Antichrist
went out
shows up.
conquering. So I think he's here.
The white horse.
I think he's been here
Second
for hundreds of years.
I
Satan's
agree.
always had someone ready to go.
I agree. Second seal's the red horse. Peace removed. Violence breaks out.
I think
bloodshed.
he's just emerging on.
Yeah,
but
I'm
really sold
saying
on,
we're seeing the peace go away, and people are becoming more violent over silly things.
the red horse is not war. That is people turning on each other.
No, that's
like
what I'm
neighbor-
saying.
That for me is Russ Disdar's Dark Awakening. That's where all these
Well, I
programmed
mean,
MK Ultra guys are just gonna.
Yeah.
we're gonna have 1,000.
But I think we're
school
seeing the
shooters.
beginning of that. And the third seal is the black horse, which is
That's death and
Famine.
hunger.
the scales are balanced, and they say that this is all gonna happen with huge inflation, but oil and wine will be spared.
That implies that the products for the
Yeah.
wealthy,
Yeah.
those will still, that's not going to be affected. Meaning they've made provisions to take care of themselves, which they have. And regular people it's going to take about a day's wage to get a day's worth of food.
Yeah.
They will be on an unending treadmill.
The fourth seal is a pale horse, and it says it's Revelation 6:8. Death has Hades with him. Quarter of the earth killed with sword, famine, death, and by beasts. So,
Yeah, now the beasts, I think that is what's coming up on the earth that will make men's hearts.
yeah,
I don't think
Yeah,
it's
these are
a bunch
the-
of lions and bears.
those
are gonna turn on
chupacabra
people.
things that Dave saw, that the skeleton bug things. Those things were super
That's where
creepy.
even people that don't know the Bible will look around and go, this is biblical. And it still will not be too late for them to be saved, because a lot of people are saved out of Daniel's 70th week.
Right. So the fifth seal is martyrs cry out, and that's the martyrs cry out. How long? Not until the number of brethren to be killed is complete. So there's an absolute number.
That's the number of the Gentiles is fulfilled. That's when
Yeah.
there's a certain number of essentially new citizens stamped on the way to heaven. There's a particular number. No one knows what it is, just apparently God. Whenever that number gets hit, I think that's when God says, all right, Holy Spirit, remove your stuff.
Yeah, you're out.
Get out of the way. Jesus, go get your people. He gets them out. Now there's no presence of God really on earth. The Antichrist does his thing for 3.5 years. For part of those 3.5 years, life's going to seem really good. I mean, we just walked out of all these seals. And that's famine, worldwide war, that is destruction, financial ruin. We know these guys are behind the Federal Reserve. You ask, how are they going to do this? One way to do it is
Well, yeah.
all they have to do is just take money out of circulation, and this whole country collapses.
Right.
And
which I believe was going to happen if Hillary was elected.
It's not a president couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
He couldn't.
No.
Because the Federal Reserve, which is privately owned, is not beholden to Congress. They don't have to.
That's true.
They can do whatever. They're private. They do whatever they want. They're above the president.
My argument is you could, the Federal Reserve pulls out. If you have a president that's working with them, then what they'll do is they'll go to one world currency. I mean, that's what the plan is. Okay?
It is.
They would go to a one world currency. Now, if you have a president that says, no, we're not doing that, we're going to do like Hitler did in World War II. We're going to create our own bonds, U.S. bonds. We're going to create our own currency. Forget your currency. If they don't have that in place, that whole Federal Reserve thing crumbles.
Sort of. The debt of our nation really is to the Federal Reserve, but
which is to the bankers.
It's in the name of many, many banks and businesses across the globe, and also national governments.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just suddenly declare all that debt gone and replace the Federal Reserve, like the Chinese who've invested into that old system,
mm-hmm.
they're not going to be happy. We're in a fish hook because Satan has set it up so that no matter what we do, someone is getting burned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the end of the day, though, they crash the system financially, and you take what happened in the Great Depression and multiply it by 1,000. And let people try and survive like that for a year,
mm-hmm.
and then you come in with a solution saying, society's back, here's money on your account, just take this chip.
Absolutely. That basically plays into exactly what we're supposed to see biblically. One world currency, the mark of the beast, what have you.
And it'll happen really fast. Daniel's 70th week is a 7-year period of time.
Mm-hmm.
The 7 years is cut into 2 halves. The first 3.5 years, this is Satan's time on earth. This is when the Antichrist is in power. And at first, he solves everyone's problems. But the second he declares himself to be a god, which he's going to do in the rebuilt third temple, mm-hmm. which I've been told is being rebuilt, but that's hard to verify that, believe it or not. He's going to do this from the Holy of Holies. Now, the whole world's going to see it, which now we have television, now we understand how the whole world can see it. But even 100 years ago, these were prophecies that just were almost impossible to even comprehend. And the minute this guy says, I am God, I'm essentially, I am Buddha, I am the Mahdi, I am from the aliens, I am a reptilian, I am you, whatever it is. In that second, God will rain down fire. And that right there begins the final 3.5 years. Now that actually is the tribulation. Tribulation is not 7 years. The Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. And now you've got 3.5 years where God is cleansing earth, i.e., he's killing the reprobates. That's as simple as it goes. He's wiping the vast majority of humanity off the map. Maybe even all of it, but humans are going to be in the millennial kingdom. So some of it, you just have to see happen before it makes sense. I think we're on a break, right?
We're overdue. We need to go to one. So we'll come back with Seal 6 and 7. So stay tuned. I pressed the wrong button. I apologize.
Relax, dude. I think you're doing really well.
I had to do okay. So welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. Pressing the wrong button. So we're going to go through Seal 6 and 7, and then we can get back to what we were talking about off air. So, I'm thinking, okay, so the 6th seal is celestial signs. This is the earth quakes, the sun darkens, the moon turns red, stars fall, sky recedes like a scroll. Revelation 6:12 through 17. And then the 7th seal is the rapture itself. Heaven is silent for about a half an hour, and then, hello, let's go home.
Oh, so the 7th seal is...
The 7th seal is the rapture.
Okay. Yeah, that's... Whenever that happens, if you do not exit Earth during the rapture, do not lose hope. There are 144,000 sealed people that are going to be left here, and they're going to convert a lot of people to God in those last years.
You want to listen for Fab Five Freddy, I think.
Why?
Isn't that who it was?
What do you mean?
You don't know the song Rapture by Blondie?
Yeah.
Some people
Boom,
say
that
that's
joke.
the first
That's
hip-hop
way
song.
obscure, dude.
Fab Five Freddy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Lighten
get
up,
that
Francis.
joke right now. Do you want to try and make us
No,
get it?
let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta.
Once again, not the best color man for nothing. So seventh seal is we're out of here. Okay.
That's a rapture. We're gone.
So if people in your life who've been talking about God and the importance of getting to know Him suddenly disappear,
Mm-hmm.
and there's more than one or two of them in your life that just suddenly go, that's a little clue right there that they were right.
Yeah.
And you will now have one last chance, and you probably are going to have to make your decision at a very hard point, which is
Yeah.
while your head is in a guillotine, and you're going to be asked, do you want to save your life or do you want to give it up for your God? And that's a tough way to choose God, but many people will finally get it.
Well, I think it's going to be pretty evident at that point. I mean, I think it's pretty evident right now.
I don't think. Here's my thought on this. When you're raptured, your body doesn't go to heaven, right? It's your
No.
soul, your soul that goes to heaven.
Yeah,
We
your
don't
body
know.
dies. But I mean, supposedly your soul takes on the best possible version of you.
But here on earth, what I believe is that your body is going to die, and your soul is going to go to heaven. The people that are waiting, the people that have died already, who are chosen, are waiting to go back.
Right.
They're waiting for
First the
this
dead in
number.
Christ will rise.
They're waiting for the number, and where it says they're going to be impatient, but they have to wait for the right number of souls to go back while their body is dead. So your body, who's ever going, knew their body is going to die here. So it's not like they're just going to disappear and vaporize. So if you had a plague or something where they say, all these
I see
people
what you're saying. So yeah, it may be. Yeah, I see what you're
So
saying.
it's not
It really,
He's
it
saying
really
there may be a lot.
depends.
You may be tripping over a lot of dead bodies. We may not just
Right.
disappear in whole.
That's very possible.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of movies, when they depict the rapture, they just leave the clothes behind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, there's just
Oh yeah, there's people just disappear from the planes.
who
and
knows,
blah, blah.
but it's very plausible that what we would see on Earth is nothing but 100 million just dead bodies. Suddenly, people just collapse.
Right.
Um,
Die somehow.
and that would
Whether
be
it's a
easy to
plague-
blame on some alien incursion, by the
Yeah.
way, which I think is what.
And it's here's why I say this, okay? Because if anyone knows anything about the Bible, and all of a sudden X amount of people disappear, they know that's the rapture. Then they know the Bible is real, and then they would start coming back towards God. But
But
that's
you
not
also
really
know how
gonna
easy it would be to have. So, let's say those companies like Barna are correct, and that roughly 7% of the Earth is truly saved. Okay, I can break down how we get to that number, but if you take the
I wasn't familiar with the company you're talking about.
Barna,
Okay.
they do Christian surveys. They do lots of sort of surveys. They're like a Nielsen.
Okay.
So if you take the scriptures literally, they estimate that 7% of the earth is saved. And they did this by running massive surveys, phone surveys, where they ask Christians and non-Christians, how do you live your life? What do you practice? What are your routines? And that was just their estimate. So if we've got 7 billion people on Earth, we're looking about 500 million people that suddenly will disappear. Now, you would think that would be impossible to hide. However, if we look at just the United States, 7%, what do we have population-wise here? 30, 350 million now? Where are we?
In the U.S., yes,
Roughly.
approximately 360 million.
Okay. So if you've got 7% of 360 million, you've got roughly, 24, 25 million people, give or take? So 25 million people are going to just suddenly disappear out of the United States. So in a state like Michigan that has, what's the percentage Michigan has of the total U.S. population? Probably, 3%, 4%? So 4%, let's say, of that.
We're about, 12 million?
Yeah, like 10 million, I think,
Look it up,
give or
bud.
take.
9.962 million.
In Michigan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's call that
9.9,
10 million.
10 million.
So if you've got 7% of 10 million people in Michigan, we are looking at 700,000 people, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was 325 is the population of the U.S. So.
Okay. So what was the last number I gave? 700,000 people?
700,000.
So you boil it down to how many people will disappear out of your life. And everyone is probably going to have at least a few people. But I could also see how 500 million people could be removed from Earth and have it not even ever make the news. Because basically what you have are just a bunch of people, living with this personal knowledge. Oh my God, a bunch of people from my personal circle are gone. Many of them will start comparing notes. I lost people on my personal circle. But we may never see it on the news. And those people may be labeled psychos.
Yeah, I don't know.
You think this is a conspiracy that people were taken out of here?
But how do you hide? I mean, I know they're good at hiding things, but 7% of the U.S. population is 23 million people. Okay, and it may not be 7% out of Michigan. It may only 3% out of Michigan, or maybe 20% out of Michigan's population, that are part of. But I mean, if 7% is correct, 23 million people, you can't hide that. It's going to be obvious.
That's why I say there's some kind of thing like a plague or something.
Yeah. No, I got you, and then that makes a lot of sense. You're bringing up. I never even thought of what you're saying. I assumed it was like The Missing on HBO, and all of a sudden one day, everybody you knew who was nicer than you are is gone.
Funny thing is, people think Christianity equals niceness. True Christianity does not equal niceness. It equals truth. And the truth isn't always nice. Like people, I used to get into arguments with my ex about this, where I'm trying, we believe in two different Jesuses. And she's like, well, Jesus is love and forgiveness. I'm like, well, that is true. But he called out liars. He called out the Pharisees in public, in the public square. It's like doing it on television today, saying that they are liars. Is that what a nice person does? Or is that what a truthful person does?
Yeah, he still did it nicely, though.
Well, so nicely that they wanted to kill him to shut him up. I think he was fair, without a doubt.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it would also seem that he's able to... I don't think he lost his temper so much when he went ballistic on those guys in the temple. But he started whipping people that were selling birds in the temple, that were selling animals. He made a whip and started throwing over... Think about this. The God of the world got so furious in this moment. It was recorded in all the Gospels. He started going through the temple, his dad's house, flipping over tables. There's money going everywhere. This is why I don't think it was necessarily like a temper type of reaction, because he made a whip out of cloth that's there. He made it while he's saying, "You're in my Father's house." He makes the saying, he starts walking around. I mean, is that a nice person? Or is that? Do you
Well, the other
understand?
Depends on
Yeah,
whether you're
yeah.
his father or.
I believe the same as you do. I don't think it's all roses like people try to portray it. And the thing that one of the things that struck me was when they come to take Jesus, the Romans come to take Jesus, and what does his disciple do? First thing he does, he slices off the guy's ear.
Right.
Right? And so they were ready to go. You know what I mean? This is like watching the Old West kind of a thing. And I don't think it's quite what everybody thinks. That's why I said you have to really read the Bible for yourself, because you don't want to listen to someone else's interpretation of it and make it seem different than what it is. And a lot of people I've talked to have not read the Bible.
It's not actually. If you ask people, when I ask people if you read the Bible, everyone says to me yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a better question is, have you studied the Bible?
Well,
And-
it takes a long time. I just finished reading the Bible, and it takes a very long time.
And it's not, you don't just like read it once and get it.
No.
Like, I mean, there are sections I'm rereading now literally for the 10th, 11th, 12th time, and I'm still
Absolutely.
finding incredible information
Right.
that seems to only get unlocked with with the supernatural element. You know, it some people call it the Holy Spirit, but you can know things that do not come in through our five senses. I can know I love my son, but tell me, which of my five senses am I using to know this? We can know
Right.
things about the spiritual world that we did not pick up. Some people are born with these gifts. I mean, sometimes it's called ESP, extrasensory perception. All they're perceiving is this is a spiritual world that is all over us right now. We just can't see it because we're in this little digital dimensional representation of life that I think is really an incubator for God. Just a theory, but
Oh, it's a good theory. I picked up on some of that, and we've talked about this before, about what is your purpose here. And it's like you're auditioning, or you're going through training, or you're going, you know what I mean? That all starts to make more sense as you really start really thinking about what is really going on.
I haven't found the word recruitment in the Bible, but if I'm just a business guy observing these historical events, this looks like a recruiting campaign to me. They put the call out to the whole population. There are some basic rules to begin to apply for the job. And then the more you are in training, the more you're immersed in this new job, you start to really learn how to do the job. You're saved from the minute you acknowledge Jesus is Lord and he is the Son of God. But your rank in heaven is not determined by your belief. That is determined by your works. And if you are, the Bible gives a ton of characteristics to look for. If you're really saved by God, you will have a desire to do what we do. You'll want to do it for free. Like, you'll realize there's nothing more important you could ever do on earth. Nothing. And we're talking about souls here. And we've even talked on this show before, if 2 years worth of shows, if all it did was save one soul from eternal damnation, then it was worth it. I mean, because that's how big of a deal it is, the thing that we're talking about. There's nothing bigger. Nothing.
I think of it kind of like this, and you've been touching about this on this show, is that the point is to get to a certain number, right? Before all this happens, you have to get to a certain number.
Mm-hmm.
And so the important thing is how many people are working to do exactly what you said. Get the next guy, right? Reveal the truth to this guy so that they can be the next soul. You know what I mean? That's a clicker. You're counting. How long does it take to actually do this? And you got the other side who is actively trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, look, you see that playing out, for instance, on YouTube, where shows like ours that even mentioned the word false flag get found by a robot crawler and a channel gets shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they'd be putting that kind of emphasis on shutting down really free speech if it wasn't a problem. And I know personally, on a personal level, I know many people that have actually found God because they went investigating conspiracies. And they put it together that, holy cow, it's not that one conspiracy is true, it's that actually just about all of them are true. And when you realize that, now you can see what the world really is. I mean,
there's something going on that you are not aware of, and when you start to become aware of it, it starts to add up. Everything starts to add up from this conspiracy, and it's when you try to talk conspiracy with people, they look at them as individual things, financial, military. You talk about deep underground bases. You talk about.
And there's so many conspiracies, you almost think it's a byproduct of human nature. Like, it must just be natural for us to think that there's always a conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But no, people don't go looking to join a conspiracy movement. No one is going to be the only reason they do it is because they know something. They saw something. They were a witness to something, or they were married to someone who was a witness to something. And
most of the time, you don't want to be a conspiracy.
No, dude, I'll tell you from experience, it is not. Look, at the end of the day, the elephant in the room is solved, which is I know where my soul is going. But long before I found out that heaven was a real thing, I was a conspiracy theorist. And so you're just doing it for the sake of truth, not for the sake of God, which was enough for me to get, at least to look into 9/11, and I don't know. It just it changes the way you look at the world. It just changes. It changed me. But where was I going with the conspiracies on? Whatever. I'm losing my train of thought today.
The problem is you just can't go back.
What do you mean?
Once the light is on.
Being a conspiracy. Okay, that was. It's not. I don't think anyone does it for attention. Mm-hmm. You don't do it to generate book sales. You don't do it to. You're not going to be popular at parties.
Well, let's face it. When you talk to somebody, you meet somebody. You don't go around and start telling these things because they look at you like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's like admitting secretly I loved the Nazis. I mean, that's how you're almost viewed. With a lot of people, not everybody, mm-hmm. but there's enough people that will look at what we're doing as something so odd and something scary to them
mm-hmm.
that, what do people do when they get upset, when they're scared, or when they're uncomfortable with something? They usually, when you don't have a logical response, that's when you use emotion and you get mm-hmm. angry and you scream and you call people names because you're out of rational arguments. And that is that is the pressure point we put on humanity. Cumulatively, what we do on this show and millions of other shows like this around the earth right now it's by God's design. This is like one of the last hurdles of this basic training thing called humanity. And the only reason I can think of why someone becomes a conspiracy theorist, 99 out of 100 times, it is being driven by a love of the truth.
You know what I've noticed with definitely like my generation and younger, I think everyone knows and believes in conspiracies. Just the thing is that they don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, you might be at a party and be like, oh, I believe this. And then they'll be like, oh, my God, I believe that too. What about this? I can't tell you how many times, and with people that you would never think, how many times I've had that experience where I just say something just to test the waters, and they already right there with me know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's not something that's openly discussed. But as soon as you open the floodgates.
It's a human nature thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a human nature thing. You don't want to reveal yourself.
But
I think that's more programmed. Whenever we bring up these buzzword topics that have words like conspiracy or alien, a lot of things like that, there's already this built-in it's like they're waiting for the stigma type of response.
Mm-hmm.
So we do feel somewhat ashamed to talk about these things.
Well, it's funny when you're talking to somebody and you bring up one of these words, conspiracy, alien, a couple good ones, right? You see the look on their face immediately, and you can tell. They get that look like, oh, geez.
Some roll their eyes, and some focus in on you because they're listening more than ever because there's something inside them that knows.
Well, I think it's kind of like the Matrix. I really think it's something like the Matrix when you know there's something weird, there's something off, there's something that's not right. This whole program, when you're watching the news and you hear these things, you're taking it in and you're believing it because that's how we're programmed, right? But and usually it takes somebody start at a party or something, you mention it to somebody and they're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. That's kind of stuff I see, where you'll start to bring up different things like, how would this happen here? 9/11, for instance, well, what about Building 7, right? Yeah, what happened there, But they don't outwardly go around talking like this or acting like this because it's a human nature thing where you want to fit in and you don't want to stand out. And
you know what? The other day I was talking to my dad. He was in town and we were just sitting down, just kind of talking about them taking the guns away. And I started talk a little bit of conspiracy to him, and he just totally shut right off. But then 2 days before that, I played this video game online, and I was just in a group chat with people, and they were all just discussing, and they were all young kids, probably 18 to 25, were just discussing conspiracy theories. I mean, I just sat there quiet and listened for about 2 hours. And it was weird. They even had the God angle, which I think more people are starting to get a hold of. Because for me, man, 9/11, when I was a kid, it just, from the media, everything, I knew something wasn't right. You know what I mean? And I would say it probably took to 2011 or 12 before I realized, all right, God's got something to do with this. God is involved in this. I don't know exactly how, but somehow God has something to do with this. And I feel like these younger kids are just getting it, but they don't talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I've mentioned this on air before, but I gave a speech a couple years back at Michigan about the 9/11 movie, and I thought it was going to be a tough crowd. But actually, the entire crowd already didn't believe the official version. The entire room did not believe. And where young people get their information today is very different than how because we grew up, we'd come home and turn on ABC, NBC, CBS, or CNN.
You had three news stations before, and the older crowd is still like that. That's where they get their news. And you're right. The younger crowds don't get their news from any of that stuff. We don't really watch TV that much anymore. I mean, whatever we soak in comes through computers. There's a lot more choice in what we go looking for. And, of course, Satan's counter move to that is to start messing with our search results, removing the truth out of others' search results, shutting down anyone talking about the truth, closing their things down on YouTube. But I've had this. Yeah, there's millions of them. But I've had this dream of something I've wanted to do, which I'm going to do at some point when the audience is right. But I wanted to get a good sized room filled with people. Maybe think of anywhere from 100 to 1,000 people. Okay, good sized room. And you lay the groundwork and you tell everyone, all right, guys, we're going to ask some questions here. There's no judgments, no nothing. All you have to do is just be completely honest. I think you'll be very surprised to find out how other people think. So we lay the groundwork to make it okay for people to mention all these, taboo subjects. And we start off with, how many people here, stand up. How many people here are absolutely certain, I mean certain with 0% of just absolutely certain, for instance, 9/11 was an inside job. Okay, and a bunch of people stand up. Not everyone does. Then you ask another question. How many people believe there really is something in our skies? A bunch of other people stand up. How many people believe Bigfoot is absolutely... And I've got friends who are investment bankers. I've got PhD friends that absolutely believe Bigfoot, which I actually do believe is a thing.
And so the Bigfoot peoples. And you start to write all these conspiracies down on a board. And just say, guys, if we pooled our knowledge in this room and we shut off the manipulator, the television, which tells us how much we can talk about this, what we can really think about it, how much shame or discretion we should have when we discuss it. If we can just cut that off from people and just rely on what this body of 1,000 people in this room cumulatively believe, and you start to you will find that there are people that will with certainty say 9/11 was a false flag, blah blah blah, there really were giants buried. And you could get the audience to paint your own picture. Let them sort of lead you. I mean, you're leading them, but they're going to paint this picture. Oh, so we know so you will state for a fact there were giants. Okay, 9/11 inside it. And you write down 500 of these things. And you're now looking at the operations of the devil. You're seeing, you're right, Tony, people don't connect them. They don't. The people that did JFK they weren't alive when 9/11 happened. That was 40 years later, whatever. Wrong. It's maybe not the exact people, but it's their children. I mean, Daddy Bush was at JFK. Daddy Bush was at Reagan's assassination attempt. And son Bush was at the helm of the most powerful nation on the planet when 9/11 happened. And in all those cases, they're meeting with the families of the killers.
And his son was in charge of the tower.
So understand,
security.
It is the same people. This is the same bloodline families
Well,
that
we were talking
Jesus
about
said the whole world would be up against.
today. I was talking about Adam Schiff. You know Adam Schiff, congressman senator out of California.
I'm more familiar with the Law and Order Adam Schiff, but yeah,
okay.
I'm with you.
He's the one that's against, talking about this Russian collusion, always bringing up a lot of these crazy things. He's a real a-hole in my opinion. Okay, and I think about that. I'm looking at him. I'm like, this guy is probably related to Jacob Schiff from the Fed. Remember, Jacob Schiff was one of the people that was involved at Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve. I said, it's got to be part of the family. But he's in California. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of a long shot. Well, come to find out, I started looking it up. Well, he's from the East Coast, right?
If you look at, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh yeah, it's all part of that. These families, the Romneys. Romney's out in Utah now. You got the Bushes from New Hampshire. Now they're in Texas. All these people. Yeah, they just spread out and get control of all these different areas, and that's how they're controlling the U.S. And you start realizing this, like, wait a minute, why? You've got, when you have kids, hey, I want you to get involved in the family business. They're out of here. They're going to do something else. You know what I mean? But these families are all interconnected, and they're all doing the same things. And you brought it up before, into the movies, into, the CNN, Anderson Cooper, and the Vanderbilts, all these interconnected people, all doing the same thing. They're all on the same side, let's say. You want to talk about odds. There's no odds that would be that good that all these people were doing that just for the heck of it.
Look, reason one of Satan's main plans was to destroy the family, because that is where the knowledge of God gets passed down. It's been passed down through an ancient book, which has been at the center of most families, dinner time, congregations meeting together, small towns, the schoolhouse, the local church. We gave that up instead to get our information from the television. Mm-hmm. And I will guarantee you that the children of the elite are probably not even allowed to watch television. So ideas like wanting to break away from your parents and move from Detroit to Los Angeles to start something, that is not even in there. That just seems very illogical, because actually it is illogical. Mm-hmm. And that's what brainwashing does, is it makes you do things that are illogical unbeknownst to you. But why would you leave your support system, your family, your roots? I could understand a few people doing it. There's always, buckaroos out there. But
the black sheep.
This is a generational thing.
Well, it goes on and on. They're all interconnected, and it's all part of the same businesses, and they follow the same footsteps. And
so when you know that Satan was out to destroy the family, and then you follow who these people are that praise Satan. These are the richest people in the world. These are the Rockefellers. These are the Morgans. And you find out the Rockefellers in the U.S., what are the things that they've put their money behind? For instance, they funded the equal rights movement for women. Sounds like a good thing, right? Well, when it was described by one of the Rockefellers, Nicholas Rockefeller, to his friend Aaron Russo, Aaron Russo, who would be dead within a year of sharing the conversations he had with the Rockefellers, told the world that, when the story was told to me from the Rockefellers' point of view, it was not for the good of women, it was to the detriment of the American family. Because now you've got two parents working, so now the state has to raise the child. Our children spend, 8 hours a day in a state-run institution, which, unless you are the dumbest of the dumb, you should understand that our schooling and education makes us, it indoctrinates us. It's dumbing us down. We're getting more stupid, not smarter. And this plan in the last 100 years has worked beautifully, where marriages don't work out anymore. Half the kids in the United States are raised without a live-in dad. He pulled it off. He did it. And what do we have? And what do we got the results for? A godless country that has no moral compass, that, just like God predicted, we are going to party ourselves right off a cliff.
And that's what I was saying. This whole thing of, you've got people that are adding to the number, and then you've got this other force that are taking away from the number, right? That's what you're up against. And quite honestly, you look at, we'll put it in terms of Republican, Democrat, or right, left, or, you look at these people now. There was a gal on TV the other night talking about how bad Hillary Clinton is. But at the end she said, but I would vote for her, because they've got people so separated and so locked into their ideas that they can't open their mind and think, hey, wait a minute. They can't see what's going on. They are that far off. And that's why I think when it says in the Bible, there's just some people that you can't help.
Yeah, and even God says, throw it out, pitch my sales pitch twice. And if they're not into it, move on. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I made this mistake a lot. Neophyte Christians think the job is to convert everybody. That's not the job. You got to understand what success looks like in our field. Mm-hmm. We speak to a room of 100 people. If 5 or 10 of them walk out of there changed in some way, that's a victory. Mm-hmm. We'll never...
Well, if you had a salesman, you talk about business, right? You have a salesman that goes to visit this client over and over every day. It's not getting anywhere. What do you say? Get out of there. Don't go back there ever, right? Move on. Get sales where you can get sales.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what all this is about.
And the thing about being a when you first learn this stuff, you've got, at least with me, I had this overreaction. It even spilled into a paranoid phase where I'm looking for red stickers on my mailbox and blue light written on my garage door and checking the vents for that lasted a few weeks.
Because you thought you were going to get taken out like Cooper?
Yeah. Because there's this fear. And before I understood what it was I was looking at, it's the fear of the unknown. Mm-hmm. And couple that with a few strange things that happened. I feel like we were gang stalked a little bit. I don't know if you guys have ever had that happen.
Yeah, I talked about DiBiase.
DiBiase went through. And it stopped the second, like, I acknowledged it. Like, I looked at the guys and just winked.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the advice I gave to Dave, and it stopped right then. It only works until you get it.
Wait. So what was going on?
I think it's something that it's carried out by our intelligence agencies. It's very theoretical here, okay? But gang stalking is a thing. You know what gang stalking is?
No.
That's where people that are starting to speak the truth or have been a witness to something are suddenly followed 24/7 by a team of people, almost blatantly. They park in front of their house. If they go to work, the same car is waiting for them at the office. If they go out to dinner.
And it is trying to be obvious so that it puts fear in you.
It's intimidation.
Yeah.
And that shuts a lot of people up right there. But once you have God in your corner and you know that if you're with him, dude, that is ultimately our protection. It's not because we're smart. Believe me, if the Illuminati could kill us, they would kill us. They'd kill all of us in a heartbeat. That would solve their problem. They do not have a problem killing people. They're going to try to kill about 90% of the earth. They're going to come up short because the Bible has the earth, depending on the horse. You got a quarter of the earth going on one and then a third of the earth going. They're going to wipe out about half the earth, not 90%. So they don't have a problem killing. They'd kill what people that do what we do in a second. So what's keeping us alive? It's not luck, and it's not our, it's not our covert operation skills. It's God. And when you start to trust in that, there was a time where I was afraid to start my car, like wondering, is there going to be a bomb in it? Literally, I know other people have gone through this, and that's why I say it, so you don't feel alone. All of that was before I found God. By the time, once God, I realized that this is the biblical story. It just changed everything, and still continues to change to this day. It was October 5th, so 5 months ago, where I had my most recent breakthrough with my relationship to God, where I went from working out my salvation with fear and trembling to, I just hope it's not like an overconfidence here, but to having total confidence and faith in what it is God's looking for and what, whether I'm truly accepted by him or not.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're going to his party. And if you think you're going to show up to someone's party and dictate to them the terms,
right?
Like, would you go to some
never.
party in your neighborhood and just show up without an invitation? You didn't dress up for the party the way you're supposed to dress up. You didn't bring, a can of food. Do you think you're getting into that party?
No, probably not.
No, and you'd feel stupid doing that on earth, but that's what people are relying on to get into heaven, is that the owner of the party is just going to be like an idiot and go, "Hey, dudes, come on in, everybody." Dude, he runs a holy, pristine kingdom. Every detail is accounted for. You are not going to get it on your own terms, so you got to find out what his are. You got to find out who he is.
Can I add a couple things here?
Yeah.
One is the interesting thing that I would check out if you want to talk about kind of the protection would be Derek Prince and the
Great
Armor of God.
Yeah.
Good thing to study up on. He's very good when you look at some of his YouTube videos and things like that. And another one is, have you seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the movie, the U.S. version?
Yeah.
I saw the foreign. I don't know about the U.S., but
the U.S. version is Daniel Craig, more stylized.
Okay.
But if you remember that movie, Daniel Craig shows up to what's his name's house. He believes he's the murderer. Wants to kind of check him out. The guy gets home early, so Daniel Craig's trying to get out of there. The guy sees him and says, "Hey, come on in for a drink." So he knows what's going on. Daniel Craig knows what's going on.
But does the house owner know what's going on?
The house owner knows.
So they both know that they know.
He figures it out, right? Daniel Craig knows. He knows. Hey, come on in for a drink and we'll talk, So he comes in there. Next thing you know, the gas comes on and Daniel Craig gets knocked out. Wakes up. He's all shackled and he knows he's going to die, and the guy says, people are really easy because they know they're in trouble. But all he has to do is say, hey, come on over here and, we'll have a drink. And you think that things are going to be okay. I kind of wanted to bring that up, the things that you were talking about. It's like with religion, you think you're going to be able to just get by and, oh, yeah, I'll just do this or do that and I'll make it. No, you really have to study and know what's going on. And when the devil or the problem says, come on, just do this, that's when you have to say, no, I know better, right? Because once you do know, you can't go back and live that lifestyle, right? If you know and believe in God and you believe.
I think if you do go back to the old life, you're turning your back on God.
Yeah.
Now
Before
there's only one
know.
redemption. If you turn your back on Him like that,
you're done.
I mean, you got to go back to Him. But in that sense, I do believe you can lose your salvation.
Yeah.
You can lose it.
Yeah.
What any other thoughts from you guys about all this stuff?
No, that's.
Are you guys scared? Are you guys fearful of the end times manifesting? Or are you guys looking forward? Where are you guys today?
I'm more confused by it, to be honest with you. I mean, just being honest, like, it just would be nice to know, like, where we are in the process. You know what I mean? Because then you could kind of plan accordingly.
Problem is, you're not going to be able to ever know that.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
whole
I mean,
point.
what are you looking for? Like a date on a calendar?
Well, see, that
would be great.
yeah,
That's not
going
gonna
to
come.
though.
But not even.
But do you see all the signs around? I
Yeah,
mean, that's what
absolutely.
God said. All you need, we might not be on the pitcher's mound, but we're in the stadium. All right, we're that close. It's not. This is not anything anymore that is 1,000 years out in the future. All this was projected to happen within a generation of the regathering of Israel, and that anniversary, 70 years, actually, the first time you could interpret that 70 years being up is going to be this coming May of 2018. That will have been 70 years since Israel was chartered back into existence.
Right.
Then in 1967, they actually rolled into Jerusalem. They now took the holy city back over. You could make an argument that we've got 70 years from 1967, which puts us at 2037, I believe, right? But I do believe somewhere between 2018 and 2037 is when we're going to see it. So somewhere between this year to about 19 years, I think my son's going to for sure see it.
Yeah,
I think we are too, frankly.
The thing about, there's a reason why we don't know the date.
Right.
Because if you put it on the calendar, world end, there's like no more days after. They're just blank. It's
can
like
party up
the conversion rate on the Thursday before is going to be unbelievable.
Right.
And the whole thing is that you need to live like it. You need to live like it's tomorrow, man. That's what putting your faith in. That's what doing the work is about.
Yeah, God's system is brilliantly set up so that fake believers aren't going to be able to pull some loopholes to get in.
Yeah, how many?
This is going to weed out. This just will weed the real followers
And
versus.
plus, it's human nature. It's human nature, man. Because even those of us who believe, we may, to really get our spiritual together, our spiritual stuff in order. Procrastination is human nature, man. That's why if you make the commitment and start doing everything in your power to live by the word,
and know you're going to fail on the way.
and know you're going to fail.
And that was the part I had to work out with fear and trembling. Was it took a long time for it to get beaten into my head that I'm not going to be judged for my sins. And so I was putting all this pressure on myself to live sin-free after I found Jesus. And
you
he's
can't
more
do that.
like, dude, relax. Like, essentially, if we're trying to get into this clean room, now we have to do it by applying this mist over us. Okay, that's Jesus. That's the metaphor for Jesus. That's the only way to get in this clean room. But Satan's at the entrance going, if you guys scrub hard enough, you can get into the clean room. And they're just not, the people that go that route are just not going to end up getting in. And
They're not mystified.
yeah, exactly. So, I don't think his system's set up so that it's going to be hard to game the system.
Yeah. You know what the important thing I was wanting to say when you asked that question? A lot of people, myself included, at the whole time was like, this revelation thing is a scary thought, right? Before you really study it and learn anything about it, the first thing you think of, oh, this is horrible. This is terrible. You know, it's a scary thing. And the kids, you know, they don't want to hear this stuff. But really, if you go through it, it's really, I see it as an opportunity. Here's your opportunity. Know what you have to do. Do those things, and that's your opportunity to move on. Know what you are not supposed to do. You're not supposed to take the mark. You're not supposed to follow these people. Don't be deceived, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Learn what the do's and don'ts are, and when that opportunity or when that time comes up, that's your opportunity to make it to the next level if you're playing a video game, right?
Do you guys view what you do here, though, as work? Or is this like a labor of love?
Here in this room or
here in this
on
room,
Earth?
this work, this stuff.
Well, we don't get paid for it,
Right.
obviously. So, it's, to me, it's important just to be doing it, like you mentioned earlier.
You will actually find incredible amount of satisfaction in your life just by it. It's not a means to an end. It's a means. It is the essence of life.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think there's anything. Once you discover heaven and hell are real, unless you're working specifically and trying to keep people out of one place and get them to the other, unless you're specifically doing that, I can say everything else you're doing, whatever else it might be, is going to be all wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to have lasting value. It's going to be burnt up. And we get judged, not on whether we're saved or not, but we get judged on what our rank in heaven is based on our works. And will we be able to stand up? Or because our works will all be tried by fire. So will the stuff we spend our life on, is it going to be pleasing to God, or is he going to look at it as a waste of time? That's not why I'm doing this, but to find that out after the fact was sort of nice. So we're still figuring this out. I think we got to wrap up here soon.
Yeah, we're done.
You want to?
Hey, can I mention one more thing before we shut down?
Quickly.
Okay. Do you guys remember when I sent you the information on Deagle.com, Deagel?
Oh, is that the Dr. Deagle? He knows about all the hybrids.
No. This is a.
I remember the site, yellow site.
Yes, it's a yellow site,
Yeah.
and they basically it's used from a lot of the military contractors. Right. Okay, it's like a forecasting. It's a sales forecast for military contractors and this type of thing. So if you go to it, what's interesting is, and it's still not updated because I'm on it right now, is they have the United States population between 2016 and 2025 reduces to 54,000.
In 2025.
54,000 or 54 million?
Excuse me. 54 million from 323 million.
Yeah, look into Agenda 21.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because it's got estimations that the population of Earth is going to be drastically cut.
But this is
we got to go though. We're
we're
way.
We'll get into that next week. This has been Down the Rabbit Hole. We'll see you next week.